Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Giant Take podcast. And let's waste no time. I'm Josh. First of all, I'll introduce myself and let's get right into the New York Giants head coaching search here in the new year of 2026. As I sit here talking with Adam Schefter's Twitter open, just in case anything happens, I doubt it will unless another interview pops up. It's Wednesday night, January 7th, and the Giants head coaching search is fast and furious. Well, what is going on, you might ask? The Giants, with the firing of John Harbaugh or the parting of ways in Baltimore, Kevin Stefanski leaving Cleveland, Mike McCarthy on the table, there's a lot of candidates. So in this episode, I'm going to give some takes. Obviously, that's the name of the show, but I'm also going to go through who are these guys for people who might not know and kind of their backgrounds as well. And then also I'll give opinions along the way. I will say the Giants, search is ongoing. They need to, I believe, interview two coaches, minority coaches, to fulfill the Rooney Rule, along with some candidates that might be in there as well. If you remember the Brian Flores thing that happened with Bill Belichick texting the wrong Brian, meaning to text Brian Dable when it was unofficially that he was going to be the Giants head coach. I guess they already offered him the job, and the Giants went to interview Brian Flores and incorrectly fulfilled the Rooney Rule. So I'm sure those two candidates will be interviewed a long time, and a couple of those guys will mention in this episode as well. And they already wrapped up, I guess, the interview with in-house candidate Mike Kafka. Probably 99% chance he doesn't get the job, but that happened yesterday. Then you had Stefanski, I believe, interviewed today. A couple of guys, I think, over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, including Vance Joseph, maybe. I think also he's not in this list, but I think Clint Kubiak as well will be interviewing over the weekend. So there's a lot of guys that have options. I narrowed it down to just a few. And again, we can go along with them as we continue on here. And I want to talk about the difference. We'll go bottom to top. So, you can go ahead a little bit in this episode if you want to hear more about John Harbaugh and Kevin Stefanski. Probably the two guys the Giants are leaning, but I want to make sure all ends are covered here. So I won't waste any more time. Let's go into Vance Joseph. He has a head coaching record of 11-21 with two seasons with the Broncos in 2017 and 2018. He's an experienced DC. He has prior head coaching experience, as I mentioned, with Denver. So leadership and aggressiveness on defense. If the Giants are thinking a defensive mind, this could be a guy that they're thinking of. He's obviously the current defensive coordinator of the Broncos. He has been a long tenured defensive coordinator, has also been with the Arizona Cardinals as well, known as that kind of natural leader, and not an older guy, but definitely a seasoned vet that, the defensive guys respect in the locker room, and I'm sure the team as a whole too. He also has connections to Giants general manager Joe Schoen from their time together back when they were both with the Dolphins organization. So a defensive-minded option, a head coach experience as well. Not a great head coaching experience, but he does have it. So, Joe Schoen, his connection and maybe their defensive background, I guess, could provide some sort of connection into a head coaching role for Vance Joseph. And that's kind of what I have written down for him. A guy that Giants fans, if you remember from the Brian Dable search, was the name that the Giants interviewed, and they're doing it, I guess, again here. Lou Anarumo has no head coaching experience. Currently is the Colts defensive coordinator, and like I said, no head coaching experience. And by the way, the Indianapolis Colts defense performed middle of the pack this year, so it wasn't anything too crazy. I would say his most notable time was when he was a Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, I believe, and that's when the Giants interviewed him for the head coaching job the last time around. That's when I think if you were going to hire Lou Anarumo, it would have been the time, but apparently he's still getting these calls. So anyway, obviously, like I mentioned, helped the Bengals in a playoff run and recently joined the Indianapolis Colts. Versatility, game plans kind of has been his specialty throughout the years. He goes into in-depth game-specific details on each team that they're playing week by week. It's not like one uniform scheme that he likes to carry on. He's apparently very good with scouting opposing teams and styling the defensive game plan based on those defenses with disguised coverages and obviously a big secondary guy as well. Big proponent of cornerback and safety play and their versatility and diversity and playmaking ability on the defensive side of things. Lou Anarumo, oh, why does he make a good candidate? Or maybe why is he getting an interview? Well, I believe his son is in the Giants organization working there already. And he's also a Staten Island native. So probably grew up a Giants fan, or at least followed the team somewhat if you're living in Staten Island growing up, and also having some sort of connections because the Lou Anarumo's son was the Giants defensive backs coach back in 2018. And his son works for the team as a pro scout. I'm sorry. I think Anarumo was the defensive backs coach in 2018. Now his son works for the Giants as a pro scout. So former employee of the team, current employee, his son. There's connections there. I don't know if he'll get the job. I don't think he would get the job, but definitely a reason why he would be interviewed. And again, like I said, 2 back-to-back defensive coordinators. So if Joe Schoen decides to hire one of these guys, he's looking for a defensive mind. And then he'll have to probably look for an offensive coordinator, or the coach will decide. We'll have to see. But if Joe Schoen, and I'll get to this a little bit later, if Joe Schoen wants more power in this coaching search, he'd hire a defensive coordinator like that, and then he would decide who becomes the OC. Not wasting any more time, we'll get into the next guy, being Antonio Pierce. You'll definitely recognize this name, but I'll get to why in a little bit, but you probably already know why. He's had definitely limited interim kind of stints with the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders in the 23-24 season because they've been just got so goddamn bad. He compiled a record that maybe some people turn their heads about, but it wasn't anything too wild. And why do you know him well? Antonio Pierce, if you haven't connected the dots already, Super Bowl winning linebacker for the New York Giants. Obviously is a player-friendly name to, I'm sure, players who we talk to in the Giants organization currently and the front office as well. And, moving up the ranks, winning Super Bowl XLII at that point. So the Raiders interim head coach, he made an impact with the Raiders. I don't know the exact record that he had with Las Vegas. I just don't think this is a candidate that the Giants truly consider. If anything, I think it's below the pack of what I just mentioned with Vance Joseph and Anarumo. As much as it's cool that this Giants linebacker translated well from player to coach, I don't think it's enough to where it's really going to draw attention to the Giants organization saying we need to give this guy a head coaching job. But moving to someone that the Giants might do so. And these are where I think the big 3 lies, right? The 3 guys that you might think of. And let's start with number 3, Mike McCarthy. His head coaching record, 174, 112, and 2. I mean, doesn't get more extensive than that. He's had a long time coaching in this league, 11-11 in postseason play. He had 17 NFL seasons with the Packers from 2006 to 2018, had a brief stint with the Cowboys 2020 to 2024, which is not very brief in the coaching landscape of the NFL. But in terms of his previous regime, I guess, under or with the Green Bay Packers, that is considered brief. So obviously the most extensive head coaching resume out of all of these guys, maybe except another guy we'll mention, and John Harbaugh. McCarthy is a consistent winner. And I say that because he's one of only 5 NFL head coaches alongside, you ready for these names? Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, Andy Reid, and Bill Belichick to lead a franchise to 8 straight playoff appearances. That's huge. Moving on, he also won Super Bowl XLV and was with the Packers in 2011. And that is the deal with Mike McCarthy. Let's get into more specifics, actually. I have some more stuff about his time with the Packers. He had a 62, was like his percentage of winning. His percentage of winning. He had a 62% winning percentage with the Packers, 125, 77, and 2 from 2006 to 2018 when he was their coach. Super Bowl win, obviously, against the Steelers, 31-25, 8 consecutive playoff appearances from 2010 to 2017, 4 consecutive NFC North Division titles from 2011 to 2014 in that span of obviously making the playoffs 8 consecutive times, a 10-8 postseason record, so not great, not horrible, but he's made the postseason. That I think is what's most important here. With Dallas, it was a 58% winning percentage, 49-35 was his record. He had 3 consecutive 12-win seasons and NFC East titles. That's when the Cowboys were dominant with Dak Prescott, with Ezekiel Elliott and company from 2021 to 2023. CeeDee Lamb was in there as well. But with the Cowboys, and we love this, a 1-3 postseason record. Be interesting if the Giants hire him, because then it's the Cowboys' former coach coaching the Giants, staying in the NFC East. Known for obviously his creative offensive schemes, and we saw that how he could work with elite quarterbacks such as Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers in his time at Green Bay. I don't want to say he fully developed those quarterbacks. Those quarterbacks clearly had the it factor. Dak Prescott, I guess, too, although I hate to admit it, he's a pretty good quarterback. But I think his ability to, if he didn't work with them or coach them, he worked alongside them well. He created offensive playbooks and offensive schemes that worked for their needs. So I think that would be something that would be cool with Jackson Dart. No, he's not the same type of quarterback as any of those three guys, but to show that he worked well with them and he drew up obviously good play calling for Favre and for Rodgers, regardless of if they were generational talents or not, which they both are very much very good quarterbacks, right? It's still important to know. And I think that could be interesting to say. I don't know about quarterback specialists, but he's worked well with the guys that he's had. And I can leave it at that. He also implemented kind of modern analytics into his decision making during 2019. So, maybe a next gen stats sort of thinker more than you might think with how old Mike McCarthy is. The playoff performances. Here's the thing, though. If you're a Giants fan, you haven't thought about the playoffs since the Giants even made it, and that was a few years ago. Then the Odell Beckham yachts, stint, and then you think of Super Bowl in 2012. So I understand that people might be upset because McCarthy has been inconsistent, obviously being 1-3 in the postseason in the last 5 years that he spent with Dallas. But how about worry about making a postseason first, then think of the postseason record? There's a difference between if you're a Steelers fan and you're saying, okay, Mike Tomlin has been here long enough and we haven't won postseason games, but the Giants just need to make it to the postseason. Forget about worrying how a coach has done with that. So when I've been seeing tweets and stuff about that, that just pisses me off, because that's like, do you want to win or no? Because if you want to win, Mike McCarthy has won. I understand maybe not as many Super Bowls as everyone would have liked, but it's hard to win in the playoffs. I get the record, but it's like he guides the team there. And that's also why, in a way, I guess I'm not a Steelers fan, but I would be okay with a 500 or a 9-8 record every year and losing the wild card game or losing the divisional like the Steelers have done with Tomlin, instead of what they're saying, oh, well, we haven't won anything. Like, how about you switch sides? Take a Jets or Giants fan's shoes and see how you feel about Mike Tomlin then. So those type of fans just annoy me. And that's what I have there. So yeah, the conclusion with Mike McCarthy, veteran, safe choice, got a good track record of sustained success, obviously developed top tier offenses. So he's more the offensive minded coach in comparison to guys I've talked to previously, has managed star players as well and dealt with star personalities, which hopefully won't be a factor with, Malik Neighbors or Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't know if I would consider him a star, but Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo with the New York. He would be fine in New York, I think. Like that, he's shown that he can handle the deal there with the media and with players too, might be getting in their own heads. So I think that's also something to note as well. Could definitely have a high ceiling talent with the offense and with Jackson Dart. So that would be cool. Obviously a less flashy name than John Harbaugh, but I think a good option nonetheless. Okay, let's go to, how do I want to order this? The top two guys. I'll go Kevin Stefanski first. He interviewed today for the Giants job. 45-56 regular season record, 1-2 in the postseason, 6 seasons with the Cleveland Browns as head coach before being removed of his duties earlier this year. Recently, obviously fired by the Browns after 6 seasons, just mentioned that. Viewed as one of the early favorites for the Giants, owns 2 AP NFL Coach of the Year awards in 2020 and 2023. And yeah, I'll just keep going here, then I'll give you my thoughts. So he won the only playoff game by a Browns head coach since the franchise's 1999 return in the 2020 wildcard victory against the Steelers. He coached through significant injuries, including the 2023 season with 5 different starting quarterbacks. Had an 11-win record, by the way, that year. So multiple 11-win seasons. Then over the last 2 years, it's been a lot of losing. 8-26 record in the 2024-25 seasons. Obviously, the failure that was the Deshaun Watson trade, and that consumed a lot of draft capital, and then the roster and reshaping it was hard with the millions of dollars that Dak was getting paid while being a horrible person. So let's talk about this a little bit. A two-time coach of the year with the Cleveland Browns, and I said one of those years was with 5 different quarterbacks that he then had an 11-win record at the end of things. And then I don't know if it was fully his decision or the general management / front office at the Cleveland Browns to bring in Deshaun Watson, but I'm sure he wasn't. I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know if he was too thrilled about that. Then this most recent stint this year with the Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, what the hell is going on at quarterback? It's tough. And listen, the Giants have had their shit this year. Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, they have their own issues at the quarterback's position. But now they have Jackson Dart. So there's a solidified guy. Don't need to worry about any restructuring with a Deshaun Watson, hopefully, cross my fingers, obviously. But, an issue like that or something like the 3 quarterback system, again, hopefully we never have to go through that in the next 10 plus years, hopefully ever. But, where we have to do 3 different quarterbacks in a season. But Stefanski is a guy that has gone through that. And now just to have Jackson Dart as the hopeful leader of this Giants team, I think would be cool. And you saw what happened with Baker, right? That's how Stefanski can hopefully lead Jackson Dart, another offensive mind here. And now I'll go to John Harbaugh, and then I'll give my final thoughts on the 2 of those guys together. John Harbaugh was huge when that news dropped. Regular season record of 167 and 103 with the Ravens through 2025 season, winning percentage of about 62%. Postseason 12 and 10 in the playoffs. He has the Super Bowl championship after the 2012 season. Baltimore has made the playoffs in 11 of 12 of his seasons, with at least 6 division titles and obviously multiple AFC championship appearances. He also had 9 years with the Philadelphia Eagles, believe it or not, back in the day, in the early 2000s and even before then as a special teams coordinator. So has a history there. Which, the recent Giants special teams, that might be something to be of note. He has a lot of experience there, almost a decade-long experience. I know it was in the early 2000s, but still. With Ben Sauls probably being the Giants' future kicker, you would think. Hopefully, the stuff that's been happening week after week, month after month, year after year with this Giants special teams, if John Harbaugh gets hired, all goes away. And I'm not saying it's like a 1, 2, 3 and snap of a finger. He's not a wicked witch or I guess a genie in a way. But if I were to grant 3 wishes in a bottle, I would say one of them is if John Harbaugh's hired, hey, maybe fix the special teams because it's been pretty bad in years prior. So that's definitely super exciting to know. And not only, obviously, has he had the Philadelphia Eagles run as special teams coordinator, he's also got a defensive backs coach role in his past as well. And then it doesn't seem like that ends there because on the offensive side, what we've seen with Lamar Jackson, what we've seen with his dual threat, obviously Lamar Jackson is one of a kind with how he can pass and run the ball. We've never really seen anyone like him. However, Harbaugh was able to play well with him. I mentioned how Harbaugh has had winning records. And again, it's kind of similar to, in a way, Mike Tomlin. I hope I wasn't saying Mike Vrabel earlier. I think I said Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. But regardless, now I don't know why I'm thinking about that. But Mike Tomlin with the Steelers, that's what his name is. With the, inconsistencies in the playoffs, Harbaugh has a 12-10 record in the playoffs. Ravens fans were done. Ravens fans and the Ravens front office had confidence in Lamar Jackson that they wanted him to lead the squad and thought Harbaugh wasn't good enough to do it. So they're going to bring someone else in. Fine with them, fine with me. All right, so here's the end of the road. This is what I'm thinking. And I appreciate you sticking around if you made it this far. I hope you learned a little bit more about the coaches. Let's get into opinions. And obviously, your opinions on this as well are very valuable. So please, as Giants fans or wherever you are, or whoever you root for, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Or if you are listening to this episode, hit us up on social media at the Giant Take Pod on all platforms and let us know what you think. We have a poll going right now about who you think the Giants head coach will be. And obviously, feel free to tweet at us or whatever it may be. So Stefanski, I think in that way, will be the Giants head coach because Joe Schoen will have control over him. Joe Schoen will have the decision to, I want to hire this guy. I don't have to get the okay for that. I can do that myself. Or I want to make this draft pick. I don't really care. I don't really care about your opinion is a far stretch, but Joe Schoen will have more leniency as the general manager of the Giants to do whatever he pleases without having to kind of run it through Stefanski if he doesn't feel like it. If he doesn't feel like doing something and he hires Stefanski, what the role will most likely be is he will do it. The difference, 20 years older than him, is John Harbaugh. I believe he's 63 years old. Stefanski being, I think, around 43. John Harbaugh is going to come into the New York Giants team and the organization and say, hey, listen, you just canned this guy you came with out in Baltimore, or out in Buffalo, excuse me. You came with him. You know, I was the assistant. You were the assistant general manager. You became GM, and John Mara, the owner, said, who do you want as your head coach? And you did your search, but you ended up landing on a guy that you've been friends with for quite a while. The offensive coordinator at the time, Brian Dable, and he just canned him. You let him go. Now, even though it wasn't really a Joe Schoen move, it was more of a front office and ownership move, and Schoen wanted to keep him on the leash and let him keep going. Regardless of that, I think Harbaugh is going to come into the building, whether it's in its interview or if he gets hired, and he's going to say, I want to run this operation. I want to choose who's my OC and DC is. I want to choose who my special teams coordinator. I want to choose whether we're going to trade back with our pick 5, whether we're going to make a pick there, what we do. I want to have a say in that, or I want to be the one to make the say, not you, Joe, because I've been in this position and in this higher up role longer than you have. And I do think, does that affect Joe Schoen's decision? And that's the question that it comes down to. And not knowing Joe Schoen personally, listen, I mean, I could be wrong, but maybe you watching or listening do. I don't know what he'll decide. That's like where it gets beyond me. It's just the same way that I'm not friends or, family with the Mara family. And when I knew, when all the reports were out there that Joe Schoen was basically staying for the last month, I said in the last episode after the recap of the Cowboys, when there's nothing I can do, there's nothing you can do. Joe Schoen is sticking around. Do I want him to stick around? Do I want it to be a new GM and head coach? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not. Joe Schoen's sticking around, at least for now, through this head coaching search. He's going to hire someone after the draft. Who knows? I assume he'll stay, because that would be weird if they did that. But that definitely begs the question. Does Joe Schoen hire a head coach where he could still be in more control over things than not? If that's the case, Kevin Stefanski, let's sign that. Let's sign that contract. Let's give a handshake, and you are the new head coach of the New York Giants. If it's, you know what? I tried that with Brian Dable. It did not work out. We had a lot of failures. I addressed my mistakes. I understand the question. Throwback to his press conference a couple months ago, I think now. He understands the questions, and that's Joe Schoen saying internally, hey, listen, I messed up. I don't want to mess up again. John, you're hired. Let's steer this ship together, or if you want to lead, in the right direction. And that's the way that he goes. So it's a matter of kind of his thoughts on it. That's really what it comes down to, I think. And of course, that's not the only reason the Giants will consider they'll consider recommendations. They might call up their guys. Hey, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? They will consider their schemes, what they bring to the table, how they answer the question of what they'll do as the New York coach. I'm sure that comes up with a question. We're in a 3-game losing streak. How are you going to deal with that? Stefanski and Harbaugh are going to give confident, good answers in these interviews. Stefanski already did. He interviewed today. I'm sure he did. They've had long enough experience. They've had many of these interviews. There's not going to be one of those guys who bombs. It's going to be a long and tough decision. So that is another thing that I say to you Giants fans. This is all exciting now because all of this is happening as all these teams are looking for head coaches after Black Monday. And you're thinking, Kevin Stefanski, if you want him to be the head coach, why don't you sign him now? They can't. They got to interview these people for the Rooney Rule. They might go through second stages of interviews with candidates. If they're getting closer, they think they're finding a candidate. This is not going to take 1 week. This might not even take 2 weeks. You might look towards the end of January and you might get your head coaching decision on the 26th. I'm just throwing out dates right now. It could be done by the end of by next week at the end of it, like the 13th or something. It could be, but it's definitely not going to be done by tomorrow. we'll get news about coaching interviews, who interviews what day. But again, like even Kubiak isn't interviewing till I believe it's like Saturday. So this will take time. And you know, I kind of will leave it at that. So I'm very interested in what you think. I guess I didn't even say who do I want? John Harbaugh. Come on. I mean, that's an easy answer. That's an easy answer. Am I okay with Kevin Stefanski? Absolutely. I would have no problem with him coaching this New York Giants team. But who, if you know, gun to my head, or here you go, you get to decide who you want the Giants coach to be. If I was the GM, if I was Joe Schoen, I would try to work as much magic as I can to get John Harbaugh coaching this New York Giants team. I think he's the best guy, the best candidate that will lead them in the right direction. And I'm not saying Stefanski will not. I think Stefanski would as well. But again, I trust John Harbaugh with the Giants' decisions in his hands more than I do Kevin Stefanski, or more than I do Joe Schoen. That's the whole thing I just spoke about. I would rather have John Harbaugh in a more huger process in this Giants team than I would Joe Schoen, because obviously it hasn't panned out so far with Joe Schoen as the GM, and that's why so many Giants fans wanted him gone, but he's still here. Mike McCarthy, I could take or go. So yeah, let me know who you think the Giants head coach will be, who you want the Giants head coach to be. I appreciate you making this far in the episode. Obviously, we'll keep things pumping here, keep things rolling as news comes out. And that's the deal right now. Obviously, for instant updates on that, follow our social medias. I've been updating the Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Giant Take Pod, and the TikTok itself at the Giant Take Pod with updates on all that stuff. So if you want instant stuff, go on there, and then obviously subscribe here on the audio platforms or the YouTube channel for content as we roll along here. The head coaching search is underway. It's a fun time, and we appreciate you following along with us. See you next time in another episode. Peace.